Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Defna, and I'm from the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee.
I'm Maria. I work at Labor Network for Sustainability. Yeah, I can say a little bit more about who we are. The Labor Network for Sustainability builds bridges between the labor and climate movements to unite them in the shared struggle for an economy that is just and sustainable for workers, communities, and the environment. Core to this work is supporting workers to organize around environmental issues in their workplaces and communities by helping identify these issues, tactics for raising them, and allies to amplify the impacts of these demands. This can and should happen at every phase of organizing, whether workers are just starting to think about unionizing or are considering how contract provisions that were bargained for and won decades ago apply in the context of climate crisis. So we're super excited and grateful to be partnering with folks at the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee and Climate and Community Project to support workers in building climate justice into the foundations of their campaign.
Thanks, Maria. So for those who don't know, the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee is an organization that was founded as a joint project between Democratic Socialists of America and UE, which is United Electrical Radio Machine Workers. And we started in 2020, and we were founded in order to help workers organize at their workplace for their job conditions. It was the middle of the pandemic, so not unrelated to environmental destruction and issues that arise from that. And we're really excited to introduce this element to our educational programming, to have worked with LNS and CCP and a lot of folks here at EWOC that are really interested in connecting climate work with what we do at our work, which is not unrelated, which I think this event is really about that, and how climate kind of touches everyone at work and in their community. So that's in short. And I also just want to say thank you so much to LNS and to CCP for helping us do this work, and who make this work possible, because we couldn't do it without you. And also special thanks to Yana Kalmaika, who's one of our EWOC volunteers, and she both supports workers who are trying to organize their workplace and also has a lot of experience in organizing around climate justice at workplace. So really glad that we have such a great team putting together events like this. We're also working on adding a training element to our training program. So our foundational training program, which we run every other month and which I'll drop a link to in the chat, will feature at least twice this year a fifth additional optional session that will focus on how to think about climate demands in your workplace campaign. And with that, I think we can hand it over. I'll let Maria do that.
Awesome, thank you. Tonight we'll hear from four incredible rank and file workers about the different ways in which workers are making connections between climate and environmental justice and their workplaces, and how they're organizing to make a living on a living planet. So now I am very grateful to pass it on to our moderator for the evening. We're honored to have Dr. Mi-Jin Cha here. Dr. Mi-Jin Cha is an assistant professor of environmental studies at the University of California, Santa Cruz, a fellow at Cornell's Climate Jobs Institute, a board member for the Greenpeace Fund. Dr. Cha's work looks at the intersection of climate, labor, and inequality, and I've learned a tremendous amount about just transition from her work. So really grateful to have her here, and take it away, Mi-Jin.
Thank you so much, Maria. Good evening, everyone. I'm really thrilled and honored to be here with you tonight and with this amazing panel. As Maria mentioned, my name is Mi-Jin Cha. I'm an assistant professor at UCSC, and I'm also a fellow at the Climate and Community Project. And my research focuses on labor climate coalitions and just transition. And we hear a lot about just transition, especially recently. And as it becomes more popular, it is getting more co-opted. And what I mean by that is that just transition is a comprehensive concept that is about more than just a fuel source replacement, right? It's not enough for us to build renewable energy. Just transition requires more. And if we think about some of the origins of the idea, especially from the late great labor leader Tony Mazzocchi, he argued that there are some industries that are too toxic to continue. And as we transition away from them, that burden cannot fall on workers. And the idea that we would transition away from profitable industries is a transformative ideal, and it's not just how can we tweak the system minimally. And today, fossil fuels are too toxic for us to continue. And similarly, as we move away from them, that burden cannot fall on workers. And when we think about just transition in the role of workers, we are talking about more than just coal miners and oil and gas workers. All workers matter in the climate fight and will be essential to leading the fight against climate change. And workers matter specifically in three ways, right? Workers will feel the impacts of the climate crisis, as you will hear today. Everyone from folks that work outside to folks that work in places without any temperature control suffer from the impacts of the climate crisis. Climate is a workplace issue. Second, the power of workers united is central to moving an ambitious climate agenda. We need power to overcome the power of the fossil fuel industry in order to advance an energy transition. And power comes through money or people. And we will never have enough money as the fossil fuel industry, so we need people. And finally, workers are central to building an equitable carbon-free future. And that is not more clear than from the people we are lucky enough to hear from today. With us tonight are Alfredo J., who's a farm worker and member of Familias Unidas por la Justicia, Lauren B., who's a teacher and member of the Chicago Teachers Union, Joseph S., who's a solar energy construction worker and member of the Green Workers Alliance, and Matt A., who's a Starbucks barista and a member of the Starbucks Workers United. Our format tonight is we'll start with a couple of questions I'll ask of all the panelists, and then we'll move to questions for each specific panelist, and then I'll open up to general Q&A. If you have questions at any time, please feel free to chat them and type them into the chat, and someone will make sure that they are noted. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. And the first question I have for you all is so that we can get to know you a little bit is, can you introduce yourself and give us some basics about your workplace, what kind of work you do and the work environment, and is there a union or the number of workers, and just a little bit about your experience. Let's start with Mad.
Hi, yeah, thank you. My name's Matt. I am a Starbucks worker. I've worked for Starbucks for almost 9 years now. I'm in Houston, Texas. I work in the medical center in a hospital, Starbucks. And we are unionized. Starbucks Workers United has existed for about 2.5 years now. But my store joined the union in fall 2022. So I've been involved for about 1.5 years now.
Great, thank you. Let's start. How about Alfredo?
Hi everyone, my name is Alfredo Juarez, also known as Lelo in the community here in Washington State. The union, well, I am a founder and also organizer with the union Familias Unidas por la Justicia, who is a all indigenous member a union. They all started in 2013. I am a farm worker. At a very early age, I joined my parents during the summer picking berries at the field. And it just happens that in 2013, while we were picking blueberries, we weren't making even the minimum which in our state. And so the next day, the second day of picking blueberry, we decided to ask for a 3 cents raise. And so much happened. And well, now we have a union. But our union, we have around 500 people in the summer that works under the union contract. But we also have other members at other farms that are not under the union contract. But like I said, I joined the working field at the age of 12. And since then I will go to school, and then in the summer I will work in the field, and that's what I continue to do. Even now I organize with the union. But very soon, as summer approaches, I will be going back in the field picking. I feel like this way I know what it's like to work under the union contract and also have a chance during the negotiating for the contract to really know what it's like, to fight for those stuff. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. Lauren?
Hey, everybody, good evening. My name is Lauren Bianchi. This is my 6th year teaching social studies as a high school teacher in Chicago Public Schools. I'm also the current chair of the Chicago Teachers Union Climate Justice Committee. And I got involved in organizing around environmental issues because there were a lot of environmental issues in my school. So when I was a new teacher in the building, I had kind of learned about the fight that was already going on to improve and repair our roof, which was leaking. There were like a lot of structural issues in the building. We have like asbestos in our building, but things kind of really took off when our school was threatened by the relocation of an industrial metal shredder right down the street. So that for me was kind of what really made me feel the urgency and how environmental issues in the community really started to become workplace issues for me and my coworkers. And so, yeah, I'll say more about this later, but it's pretty exciting now to a few years later, kind of going through some of these things. My union is in a contract campaign, and we're basically fighting for the first time to explicitly include climate and environmental demands in our next contract. And it's been pretty exciting to see kind of the fruits of everybody's hard work and many years of organizing conversations in our building.
Okay, so the second question I have for you, kind of building off of what you said before, is how did you start to organize around climate for you and your coworkers? And when you think about how organizing around climate, what tactics did you use to kind of elevate the pressure, and what barriers did you find that you really had to overcome as you started to organize around climate in your workplace? Lauren, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, so I also kind of skipped over where I work. So I teach at a school that's located in one of the most polluted neighborhoods in Chicago, which is the Southeast Side, which is really bordering Indiana. So for example, like a lot of my coworkers and I, like we go get lunch in Indiana. That's how close we are during our work day. And so, yeah, for many years, certainly, but even before I became a teacher, CTU members have been fighting to for cleaner schools, for healthier and safer classrooms. There have been campaigns for improved ventilation, for renovations, to remove lead and asbestos and mold at individual schools. But basically when some of our rank and file members decided to form a committee that would focus on climate and environmental issues, that kind of became a space where we could collectively try to address these things, not just in our individual schools, but at the kind of school district level and at the union level. So yeah, there was, and in my school, because of just within CPS, our like the average age of our school building is 83 years. Like as a school district, many of our buildings are outdated. CPS has privatized our janitorial services, so our schools are not being properly cleaned. There's really not a lot of, it makes it very difficult for people to have accountability around making sure that classrooms and collective spaces in the schools are being cleaned. Our school lunches are disgusting. Like our students are hungry, they're tired. Students are coming to school and sitting in hot classrooms that don't have air conditioning or just don't have sufficient air conditioning. So I mean, like this fall, we had 2 back-to-back 100-degree days. And that was a pretty brutal way to start the school year. And I mean, I'm fortunate, like our union contract does require all classrooms to have like a window unit, but with increasing extreme heat and weather, like a window unit is not sufficient to keep up with like an extreme heat wave. My school is located on a heat island. So these are some of the issues that have brought us together and that CTU members in different schools have been organizing around. So yeah, we're quite inspired by the work of folks in like UTLA and Los Angeles and the community partnerships that union members and teachers and school staff have formed there. And we've just basically tried to bring these issues back into our workplaces, and it has been challenging. I guess I'll say more about that later, because at the end of the day, teachers want to teach. And so now I'm talking to my coworkers about all these other things, about the air quality, about the temperature, about the fact that we don't have drinkable water in the building. And it can sometimes be challenging to make the case that these are issues that need to be prioritized. But at the end of the day, if students don't have their basic needs met, we cannot teach. We cannot teach tired, grouchy, hot, uncomfortable students that are in ugly and outdated and oppressive buildings. And so I really have come to believe that green, healthy schools are necessary to have joyful, sustainable schools for the next decades, the next century.
Joseph, let's get back to you. If you want to talk about a little bit about your work and then also kind of how climate became an issue that was motivating amongst your coworkers.
My name is Joseph Salcido from Houston, Texas. I've been working in solar for 4 years now. 3 years with Ames Construction. I'm now employed with Mortensen Construction. And of course, some of the problems that we face a lot are weather issues. And today is an example of that. And days like this really hurt us because, one, we don't make any money. Days that we don't get to work due to the weather, we don't get that per diem either. And so that's just more money that has to come out of our pocket. And an issue that came up recently with the GWA meeting was about pushing for per diem for 7 days. And I never really thought about that until I got involved with this organization, and I've actually been learning a lot from them. Issues that I never would have even given a first thought before, because to me, this was just a job, just work. I need to make money and pay bills. We have no union at the moment. That's what the organization is pushing towards, to have a better job opportunities and a better workplace environment for everybody, not just a select few. And like I said, the issues we have: weather, problems with equal opportunity to move up within companies, fair pay across the board, fair pay for people that deserve to pay, and the fact that we have to make a living and we got kids to care for is what helps a lot of us push through those issues. Through every day at work, is just, okay, we push one more day, one more paycheck for us. And I mean, it's not a life to live, really, to go to work knowing that, hey, I'm just here because I got to, not because I truly want to be. And like I said, hopefully here soon we'll be able to establish a union for the workers in wind and solar as a whole, to be able to have somebody there that can help guide us the right way to work through these issues and to hopefully one day come out on top.
Thank you. And thank you so much for all your efforts to be with us here today. We really appreciate it. Matt?
No problem.
Yeah, so we are a newer union, and we don't have a contract. We've been fighting for a contract for a couple of years now. But as some of you may know, we actually are starting bargaining here in a couple of weeks. So that's very, very exciting. But post election in my store, we only have on average 10 to 15 employees working at my location. Right now, I think we only have 11. But after our election, the mindset in our store was very much like, we won this, we want a contract, but we didn't really realize how much power we had as workers until we get that contract. But climate came into this last summer, as I'm sure Joseph also experienced. We had a crazy hot summer here in Houston, 110 degrees for over a month. It was horrible. And in my store, we had gotten a remodel a year before where they had messed up something with our air conditioner. They knew that they had messed up something with our air conditioner, and they chose to continue the remodel anyway. Throughout the winter, it was fine because winters are pretty mild here. But when summer hit, in combination with that 110-degree weather, we definitely were struggling. So it was over 85 degrees inside our workspace every single day for about 6 weeks. Keep in mind that we're also working around super hot machines, and Starbucks is a little bit famous right now for understaffing. So we're also running around doing the job of multiple people for the same pay in this crazy hot heat. And we would call in this issue to get it serviced, get it fixed. People would come out, they'd try to fix it, or pretend to fix it, as we later found out. And nothing would change. And eventually one day, one of the technicians admitted to me that the company knew that they could not fix this issue. They knew that they would have to close down the store and do another mini remodel in order to make the air conditioner work. And that he was just coming out for show. He was coming out to make it look like they were going to fix it for us. So obviously me and my coworkers got to talking about that. And that was a really powerful moment for our union, just realizing this is a pretty simple fix, right? Like, you should not be working in that much heat indoors in a food service job where you're serving customers, and you shouldn't be sweating and stuff like that. And it would be really simple for them to just fix the air conditioner and move forward from that. But they're not going to do that unless something holds them accountable for it. So that's why we decided to go on strike. And we just went on a 1-day strike. We were outside talking to customers. We had flyers. We had great signs. Tons of community members came out and stood with us. And we got to talk to customers, have our customers go in and talk to management, and just tell them how unacceptable this is and how simple it would be to fix. And that day they made the decision to order 2 new air conditioning units for us, and they were installed in the next week. And our indoor temperature went down by 20 degrees within like an hour of them fixing it. And it was that simple. It was that like easy for them to fix, but they weren't going to do it until we put that pressure on them and started acting like a union. So.
Awesome, thank you. And Alfredo.
So again, for us, everything started out when we asked for a raise. But in terms of the union and organizing, we really had no experience in that or never heard of that. And like I said, a lot of our members are from either Oaxaca or Guerrero in Mexico. And a lot of us there don't speak Spanish and no English. It's just a lot of our indigenous language. I speak Mixteco. Our friends, co-workers speak Triqui. And so this whole thing of organizing on strike, we really had no idea what that was. So when we went on strike and were asking for a raise, they decided to fire the guy that was most vocal among us. And we just say, you know what, they can't fire all of us if we just decide not to go in unless they give him his job back, and also that they give us a raise. We're not asking for crazy raises, only 3 cents. I believe we get paid per piece rate, so we get paid for the amount of pounds we produce in the whole day. And I believe it was like 30 cents per pound of blueberries that we pick, we get 30 cents. And we wanted that to be at 33 cents, so it's 3 cents. It's not crazy. The company could easily pay that. And it just, from there, they really didn't, they thought that by firing that guy, everybody else would get scared. That did not happen. One of the biggest thing that they use against us as farm workers is that they would deport the workers if they say anything or if they continue being on the strike. And that was one of the biggest fear that was amongst all of us that were at that farm, was that at any time they could deport us. But we learned, as you know, we continue on there, and more supporter came in, more organization came in, and they explained to us, here are some of the rights you have. You don't have a lot, but the ones you have here, they are. And one of it was that ICE or any law enforcement couldn't come near us within, I believe, like 60 miles or 100 miles from where we were at all time. And so that really gave us a boost, a hope to continue on being on strike. The strike lasted for a couple of years, and also boycott. And I believe that's one of your question is like, what are the tactics? So how do we apply pressure? And we learned that strike was one of the way, and the other one was boycotting. We boycott Driscoll for a very long time, and that was the only way to get the company that we were working for to have them sit down and negotiate with us was by applying pressure to Driscoll, who was purchasing pretty much everything that this company was producing. So, yeah, we went after Driscoll. We did that for a couple of years, and then so that's one of the biggest things that we know now. We know is that strikes really work, and also just explaining to people that, there are we don't have a lot of rights when we go out on a strike or we want to fix the place where we work, but there are some, and so also just the community supports. That's something we really didn't know when we started. So we weren't sure that anybody was going to come and support us other than just us and our co-workers. But yeah, now we have built a lot of support in the community here. We also, our union supports other workers that fight for their rights. A lot of like the Starbucks workers here in the States. We really support them, and in other places too. The other big thing that we do here in the state was that we have the Workers' Tribunal, which happens in our state capital, which here in Washington is Olympia. That's where we organize a one-day event where in the beginning of it, in the morning, we go and visit legislator at their offices and invite them to our later that day event that we're gonna have for farm workers. We try to bring as much farm workers as we can, but we don't only just focus on the farm worker issues. We work on all the issues. Like climate change affect all of us, and so we at the tribunal, it's if you don't know, it's a place where we try to bring in the decision maker, the workers, judges who listens and take notes of what the people are saying, and based on that, give everybody a task. These are the main issues we hear about. Here's what we need to do. And also we invite the medias and other witnesses, community members that want to see that. From the tribunal, we have been able to pass rest break for farm worker, paid rest break. Before the union existed, there was zero rights for farm workers. We would go and clock in at 5:30 in the morning, all the way to whenever the field finished picking. That's sometimes like 5, 6, 7, no break and no lunch either. And we went from that place to now. In the state, everybody has paid rest break, 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes of lunch. And so we have been able to do a lot. And so I guess tactic will be strike, boycott, and create tribunals, a space where we bring in the workers, all of us, and also the people who have the power to change those. Yeah, that's all I have for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for all your insights. They're really inspiring. Let's dig a little bit deeper now. And as a reminder, you should feel free to put questions in the chat at any time. Matt, if we could start with you, can you talk a little bit about how you organize worker-to-worker support on your issue? What did those conversations look like? As I understand it, there were other stories where the AC issue was AC organizing was an issue. So can you just talk a little bit about how worker conversations went?
Yeah, I work it. I'm sorry. Talking to workers is one of my favorite things. And I think the biggest takeaway that I have from this particular experience is really focusing on like what's going to happen if we don't come together and do something about this. And you know, what would this summer look like if we hadn't done something last summer? What would 3 summers from now look like if they're going to get away with something now, it's going to get worse later? And just really making sure that everyone that you work with understands that, and then just problem solving together, understanding that like it is a pretty simple solution to get our AC fixed, and that it was worth making that demand and going on strike that day. But it is true that we're not the only store that unfortunately does not have air conditioning at any given point. It's way more common than I realized. I thought that we were probably pretty rare, but it turns out no, we were not. There are a lot of stores out there that have also gone on strike over similar issues, and I'm actually working with some stores here in Houston who's trying to file for election with the union for like their sole organizing issue being heat in their stores, especially drive-throughs that have those drive-through windows constantly opening and letting in the hot air. And it can seem pretty daunting to try to solve workplace issues by going through the route of filing for union elections, and then having an election campaign and then fighting for a contract before getting to see substantial change for something like an air conditioner. But we at Starbucks Workers United recently just started a new system where we're asking workers at any store, even if they're not a union store, to sign what we're calling a solidarity card that connects them to other workers in their area and helps them build a network of like-minded workers that can help each other solve these workplace problems and build worker power, even if they have not joined the union yet. And this way we can encourage workers to take on like collective action on issues that need to be solved now and have the support of other workers along the way. Because in our industry, we do have concerns that need to be fixed now. And we just want to make sure that any worker is equipped to stand up for each other in that way, no matter who they are and where they are. So that's something that I'm really excited about, and we just got started with it, but I'm excited to see where that goes, because these kinds of issues will keep coming up, and I really love this system to be able to have each other's back.
If I could just ask a follow-up conversation, can you tell us a little bit about kind of what were the concerns of folks that were maybe hesitant to join the union, or what were some of their fears in joining a union?
I mean, there's a lot of fears because I'm sure everyone has seen Starbucks in the news over the last couple of years for just absolutely wild union busting. But for a lot of workers, it's really just, you know, a lot of people who work at Starbucks because they have a disability and they need health insurance, and Starbucks will provide a flexible work schedule and health insurance at 20 hours or more. A lot of people work at Starbucks because they are going to school or whatever. It's a flexible work style and does have health insurance. So a lot of people are really afraid to disrupt that. And organizing around issues like this can seem like maybe it's not worth it. As someone who works at Starbucks for those exact reasons, I'll tell you it is, but it can be pretty intimidating in that way.
Great, thank you so much. Lauren, if I could ask you a couple questions. You've touched on this a little bit in your previous remarks, but can you talk a little bit more about how you and the union came to work with the community members and residents to fight against these environmental injustices, and how kind of, you know, their community interests are actually connected to union interests, and how that can sustain labor community relationships?
Yeah, so I think part of that is because of a lot of the publicity and some recent successes of local environmental justice campaigns in Chicago. So several years ago now, people organized to successfully close down a coal power plant. people in the community and in the Southeast Side neighborhood where I work organized to regulate petroleum coke or pet coke. And there's like active campaigns around regulating asphalt plants and a lot of other environmental hazards in the community. So in my school, for example, like we just heard that community residents were organizing against the relocation of a metal shredder from a wealthy white neighborhood on the north side to our neighborhood, which is majority Latino, majority Mexican, adjacent to majority Black neighborhoods. And so myself and coworkers, I think, first started teaching about the issue. Like I'm very grateful to work in a school district that actually says it wants us to teach about current events and issues that are affect our students and students will be interested in. So first we started teaching about it, and I think for some of us during COVID, when a lot of school buildings physically closed and CPS we closed, at least initially, and shifted to remote learning. And it was kind of an opportunity for us to attend community Zoom meetings that were talking about pollution in the neighborhood. And so that's like where we kind of started to meet each other, make some connections. And as it turns out, a lot of the local environmental justice activists were parents of CPS students. So the connections became clearer and clearer, where it's like, let's talk about what's happening in your children's schools, in my workplace, in the neighborhood, and more the connections became clear. So some of us were part of, some of my coworkers and the parents in my school and the elementary school next door, we got really involved in this community campaign to stop the metal shredder. And it just kind of brought us much closer. It was like a defensive fight to stop a source of pollution that was going to bring more truck traffic, more air pollution, more threats and environmental threats in other ways to the community. And we were actually successful. We did, the US EPA stepped in and kind of told former Mayor Lori Lightfoot that she had to pause the permitting process for that metal shredder. And I think nobody really thought we were going to win, including ourselves. So when people did experience that feeling and really did kind of see their power, of course, students played a really important role in that as well. I think people were like, all right, we don't want to have to just fight against the bad things. Like we also want to make sure that we are fighting for positive things, that we're fighting for things like new state-of-the-art school buildings, that young people in the community could actually get training and exposure to green union jobs in their high school. So we're now like, we're fighting for not just repairs to my school building, but we're actually bargaining now for CPS to commit to creating a new green school building for George Washington High School. We are asking the school district to create 5 new green technology CTE programs, career and technical education programs. We are asking for from scratch kitchens in more schools so that the quality of food can be much improved. That's like that is the #1 complaint among many CPS students. I know it is at my school, is above anything else, just that the food is really bad and it sets a really negative tone for the whole school day. And then also removing toxins from our buildings. So Chicago still has the highest number of lead pipes per capita of any US city. And so literally our elementary school students are drinking water at school, sometimes at school and at home, through a lead straw. And so we are asking for lead pipes to be removed, but in the meantime, to have high quality filtration so that no students are being exposed to lead in their school buildings. So it's been pretty powerful to see kind of the transformation from some of those defensive fights to kind of protect our schools from the negative impact of pollution and climate change, to watch people kind of imagine what would it be like to not just stop the bad things, but really imagine, like, if we could have everything that we want, what would that look like?
Amazing. If I could ask you a follow-up question on something that you had mentioned earlier, you said that one of the challenges was that teachers want to teach. And I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit in terms of challenges to organizing.
Yeah, so I think I think we still definitely face some significant challenges to organizing. One of those being that not I think that not all of the people that work in schools are yet convinced that these are the issues that we should prioritize. And I think part of why that is because um, after decades of divestment of the largest school closures in US history, 50 schools were closed. We are unfortunately in a situation where people have been kind of fighting over crumbs. So, we need massive supports around special education. There is a mental health crisis in this country, and there's a youth mental health crisis in this country, and we need massive expansion of wraparound services, supports, mental health services, and supports for students. And so we need more bilingual teachers. We do not have enough bilingual teachers. We need more teachers who are ESL certified. ESL students are like the largest growing student population in many school districts. And so we are facing multiple crises at the same time. And so I think our challenge is to show that like green schools and addressing the climate crisis, like we have to, like for me, this is an umbrella where we can address all of these problems. Like we can't have a sustainable school if we don't have those wraparound services, if we can't meet the needs of all of our students. And at the end of the day, if our physical school building is hot, overcrowded, dirty, full of toxins, then of course we are not meeting the needs of our students. Our communities, the people who work in our schools deserve, healthy, safe, comfortable environments. And so trying to make those connections, it is a challenge because I think people feel like they have to choose, like, this is my one priority. And I think we have to make the case that it can't be one or the other. We actually have to demand more. Like these things are all connected. We shouldn't have to fight over crumbs.
I really appreciate that, especially how climate is really every issue, and every issue is a climate issue. Thank you. Joseph, you started to talk about this a little bit, but I think people think about any kind of solar is good because it's green. But some of the conditions that you're talking about are actually really abusive and really create precarious labor. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the working conditions and how kind of solar is being, this idea of greenwashed, where people just think because it's environmentally friendly that it's good, and some of what of those challenges are when you have the working conditions that you have.
Yes. Well, the working conditions. Well, of course, solar energy is better for the environment as opposed to fracking and in the oil and gas industry with coal. But that may be, but to get to that point, the sites have to be built, the work has to be put in, and I mean, even in some of our contracts, they put it in there that you have to be willing to work in extreme weather and harsh conditions, in the rain. I've worked in the rain and snow, uh, condition where it's 100+ degrees outside, and working in those conditions on a person, it takes a toll on you. It drains you physically, and while trying to fight through that physical pain, you're also dealing with mental issues of, can you push yourself through it? Will you be able to go another day, another week, another month? And I mean, we will work out in the rain until there is lightning or where it's just a steady nonstop downpour. And I mean, in those conditions, it's not safe. You're working around heavy machinery, you're working around heavy steel. Um, you got iron and beams on the ground. You could slip and fall, and you are required to work through that until they tell you, okay, now you can stop. Of course, they tell you we all have stop work authority, but does anybody truly believe that? No, we don't. You always get scared of that retaliation for going against what's being told to you, of being that one that's going to be the opposition to the higher ups. And nobody wants to be that person. I'll be honest with you, there's been time where I've been scared to be that person because, again, I got to make a living. And I mean, here we are, we're barely in the spring here in Texas where I'm back working. And I mean, you already got in mid 80 temperatures. Of course, you got the humidity here in Texas. So I'm dreading what this summer's going to look like for us. And I mean, I'm a strong worker, I'm a strong man. I could push through a lot, but as I'm getting up in age, I'm starting to feel it a lot more in my body. And I know not everybody works how I do or has the abilities that I do, and I get scared for other people with what we're about to face with this summer coming up. Uh, and I mean, just it's tough. And again, it also goes hand in hand with the toll that it takes on us physically as well as mentally. But then again, for days with bad weather, we don't get that per diem. We don't get those hours paid. And so you're losing on both ends, your health and also on your finances. And I mean, I love the work that I do, but it gets real questionable at times. And that's why I took the step to join GWA to really explore what's really out there, what benefits are actually should be given to us. And sorry, and it's getting to a point where something has to change. And to be a part of what we do in building these solar fields, knowing that we'll be bringing cleaner energy, more energy to people that aren't able to have this. It's a great feeling to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, but also with GWA to be able to be a part of something that'll bring a community together and actually be beneficial to us as employees. You know, that's also a great feeling, and I'm looking forward to what this journey brings for us, but it's gonna be a hard one. It's gonna be one that we're gonna have to fight tooth and nail for because it's not just gonna be given to us. But we have to put in the work for it because I mean, if we could gripe about the conditions, whether it's weather, whether it's physical, whether it's financial, but if all we do is gripe about it, we're not gonna get nowhere. So, for organizations like y'all that y'all have, that GWA has brought into my life, I'm proud to be here, and like I said, I'm looking forward to see where this fight takes us.
Thank you. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what the conversations with your coworkers are like when you talk about GWA or organizing or unionizing, kind of what kind of conversations you have?
See the conversations that we have. Well, for me personally, I just bring it up. A lot of it happened after this, or the third annual leadership training that we had in Chicago. It was an amazing experience. And I just talked to my coworkers about what I learned, about how it's been beneficial to me, how they helped me, and what I see that they're working towards and why I believe in it. And I could tell them, oh, well, GWA could do this for you, do that for you, but until they see, oh, well, dang, they did that for you, I want to be a part of that. I want somebody that can help me. I want somebody to help me get these benefits that I want. And so by telling them my personal experience with GWA, I feel it reaches them more on a personal level because there's no story more intimate than our own with what our experiences are. And as soon as I tell them that, it's like they just start pouring out the problems that they're facing, that they're going through. And I have already helped gain their interest in that. And then, just hop on Facebook real quick, send them a link for them to go check it out. And I've had multiple people here at this site come back to me and just kind of nonchalantly start a conversation with me about what GWA is. And a lot of the same questions get asked by the same people. I feel maybe they're trying to see if maybe my responses will change, if my belief in what it is will change, but they see the consistency with it. And they want to know more. They want to be able to be a part of that. They just don't know how to take that step into it. And social media has really been a big help because I mean, there's so many solar farm workers, US solar, I mean, all kinds of networking opportunities on social media. And by just taking time to indulge in those, start seeing what all the conversations are, listening at the work site, what the conversations are, that's what helps us know what obstacles we have in front of us and what we need to attack and what issues need to be addressed and dealt with. And I just, I take it from there. Like I said, I tell them why I'm a part of it, how they've helped me, and how they can get in touch, and not just going and joining the group or whatever, but I've had them, they come and let me know, yeah, they reached out to me. So GWA is active in their new members as well as their existing members. They actually take time to show interest, a genuine interest in what's going on in our work lives, but as well as our personal lives. And I know that for a fact because that's how I got into GWA, by a issue that was going on at work with my fiance, and they took time out of their day to reach out to us to try to help us. They exhausted every avenue that they could to be able to help us and to help us grow with the organization. And to me, when somebody gives you their time in any way, that's the most important thing in life. And it's something I truly appreciate. And I just want to be able to continue sharing that appreciation with my coworkers that I come across through, and like, it's just, we just got to grow from there.
Great. Thank you so much. We're about to open it up for general question and answer, so please reminder to drop your question into the chat. Before we do, Alfredo, can you describe for folks that don't know what the H2A guest worker program is and the risks that come along with that in organizing workers in that situation?
Yeah, so H2A workers is a guest work program. In a way, it's for the company to request worker outside of the United States and other countries to bring them in because they have shortage of workers. Well, that's what they claim, and that's the only way for them to get those H2A worker is by proving that there is a shortage of worker, but the whole thing of proving doesn't really nobody's out there really making sure that there is a shortage of worker. All the company has to do is just put a small little link on their website, say we are hiring, and that's it. That's enough of promoting to local workers, and if they don't go apply, well, that's their fault. And so the company just say, you know what, here's our little promotion that we did out in the community, and nobody can apply, so there's a shortage of worker and we need more workers to pick up. And so they applied for H2A workers. Yeah, so it's taking people from another country and bringing them in here in visa. The company that requests them, once they get here, holds on to their passport or their documents, so they can't go anywhere. They go from the housing that they're provided by the company, from there to workplace to home, and they do that every day. And the company takes them once a week or twice a week to the store to buy some of their groceries, and that's it. Usually these H2A workers, where they stay, it's outside of outside of the community of the city, so they really don't have any connection with the community. And that's one of the big challenges for us, is to let the community, those workers, know that they have rights, because that's something that they do not know. Like I said, they're brought in from other country. A lot of them don't speak English. They don't know how to ask for their rights. And one of the biggest things, their biggest fear is being deported. At any time that they decide to speak up, they can get deported later that day and be put on a blacklist where they can't apply for any other company in the whole United States ever again. So, and that's one of the biggest, like, big problem, is that it's either you speak out and risk that could happen to you, or just keep quiet and just work through whatever condition you're in. A couple of years ago, we heard a lot about H2A workers that weren't provided water breaks from their employers, and a couple of them have passed away at workplace because they were forced to work from early in the morning out until whenever the field finished picking, with no breaks, no water, no shades to cool off. And climate change have really changed a lot recently. Like I said, when I joined the work field in 2012, it was in Washington, it was mostly rain in the summer, but now it's rare to see rain here in the summer. And so that really have affected a lot of workers, and it's very hard, and both for helping organize the H2A worker, but also for us, the local workers here too, because we all are outside the whole time. And so that's one of the biggest challenges to organizing H2A workers, is that fear that they could get deported, and because of that they don't speak out. But also, like I said, they're not connected to the community, so there isn't really that way to reach out and ask for help. But we have got a lot of calls from H2A workers here in our county and other parts of the state, that they want to do something. But we tell them, in order for us to help you, you have to organize all the other co-workers of your, because if it's just you, they can easily deport just you, 2 or 3 of you. It takes all of us, everybody at that company, to do something. And so at the moment you're all ready to do that, we'll be right there with you. We're here for you, but we can't lead this. We need you to lead it. That's been one of our things here at the union. And also, as I forgot to mention, I also organize with Community, who is a organization that supports workers that are organizing and fighting for their rights. And our biggest thing is that we shouldn't be the one leading the changes here. It should be the workers at the place, because they know what the changes they need the most, versus us telling them what they need. But we'll be there to support them as much as we can. And so, yeah, it's very hard to organize, especially because people don't speak the language here or don't read it. The other thing is that, like I said, the company here recently, their request from H2A went from like 2 years ago, from like 37,000 H2A workers in our state to now 42,000. So they have increased a lot, but there isn't a shortage of workers, local workers here in the state. It's just that what the company have been doing is that their applications, the way they hire workers, it used to be you can go to the company's office and ask for jobs, and a lot of people here know when jobs starts, and they go in to ask a week or 2 weeks earlier before that picking season starts, so they can apply. But what the company does is that they give them a link website, to their homepage, to an application that's all in English. But people can't apply, they don't read and in English, and that makes it very tough for local workers to get jobs. And because of that, the company just say, hey, you know what, people aren't applying, local workers aren't applying. We need more workers, and they bring those H2A workers, and the reason they bring them in is that they have complete control over them, right? Again, those people cannot defend themselves, and it's very hard. And a lot of time at some fields, they bring in H2A workers to replace local workers. What they do is that for the local workers that work there, or we call it quietly firing the workers by reducing their hours dramatically. Here at the place I'm in, there's a field about 30 minutes away. One of the mom came to us and told us about the company where she works, that they have recently applied for about 100 H2A workers. Once those workers arrive, she went from working 8 hours, 10 hours a week, the whole 7 days in the summer, to only working 3 hours, 2 or 3 days in a week. And so her income dropped a lot, and she just couldn't support her family with that. And so she had to find work at another field, another farm, and that company where she was working that reduced her hours just said, you know what, local workers aren't working, they don't want to work, they're all moving away from other fields, so I need more H2A workers. And yeah, it is very tough organizing a lot of the workers, just because they don't speak the language, and also the fear of being deported.
How can folks in the larger community, for instance, the people on this call, how can we help support your union?
Yeah, so we are actually organizing a farm worker march that we usually do here every year in May, but we have switched because there's another big event happening in the city, and we don't want to get the two mixed up. So we have moved it to April 21st, which is a Sunday. It's just a week or so away. You can follow us in Facebook. That's where we do a lot of work promoting videos of the outreach we're doing in the community. You can find us there at Familias Unidas por la Justicia. It has a little person with a hand holding up his son that says Justicia para todo, justice for all, in black and white. And also our community to community. You can just search that out, and yeah, you can see a lot of the stuff we're doing. Like I said, we are organizing the April 21st farm worker march. It's only focused on workers' right, but one of the big thing there is pesticides that are applied near workers that are working in the fields. A lot of them were there just demanding that the company gives them enough warning, or lets them know that the field that they're working at has pesticides in it, or the field next to them have pesticides, and that they recommend if there's any pesticides near them or at the place where they work, that they shouldn't be there. And so, yeah, it's everything's connected in a way that we're doing. So yeah, you can follow us there on our Facebook page. That's where we'll be posting a lot of this stuff. Yeah, and you can learn a lot more from there. Like I say, from our tribunals, we also did a live video from there. Yeah, we do a lot of our stuff on the Facebook. Yeah, I guess somebody just shared the link there on the Facebook. Yeah.
This next question, I think maybe Mads and Lauren, if you could answer, which is, do y'all see it practical for demands to include more clean energy, since dirty energy makes the heat worse and just turning up the AC might use more dirty energy?
Sure, I can go first. So yeah, I mean, I've definitely learned through some of this getting involved in environmental issues in my workplace. I've definitely learned that, one of the symptoms of our very outdated school buildings is that our buildings are totally wasting energy, are a huge source of pollution. And yeah, I mean, I think that we certainly want, like, we're basically fighting to replace all of the outdated infrastructure in our schools with new low energy alternatives. One of the barriers we've faced though is, like, if a school building is so old that you can't actually replace the HVAC with a low energy modern ventilation system, then we might need to create like new school buildings. We are fighting to install solar arrays at 25 schools. That's one of our contract demands as well. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the barriers we face is, like, in our school building, we're often asking our principal to ask then their bosses to get us like the repairs and renovations we need. And oftentimes I think we've experienced that, like, our immediate boss actually doesn't have the power to give us what we need in our building. And so I think that's kind of forced us to have like more of a district-wide strategy where we organize people to go to the school board meetings, where we ask people to put pressure on our elected officials and meet with and advocate with our elected officials. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, we're gonna need a lot of state and federal funding. I mean, we're asking for massive investment in our schools. But I mean, it's a huge opportunity we have to, like, expand solar. We also want, we're also envisioning schools becoming like safe cooling and heating centers during extreme weather. So I think those are some of the ways that some of the conversations we've been having as teachers.
Yeah, for us, this is something that we're starting to talk quite a bit about as we're moving towards bargaining for a contract. The way we're bargaining for a contract is we're like doing a foundational framework for all 420 some stores as like an umbrella contract, and then we're going in and getting individual contracts for stores that take into account specific issues for things like flooding or in areas that might have a lot of like snowstorms and stuff like that, or a drive-through versus a cafe, that kind of thing. And actually that's something that Yana is helping us kind of build a little bit of framework to have a climate committee and really get workers brainstorming on how we can work in climate concerns into our contract. So I guess my answer is yes, I do see that as very practical, but it's something that asking our immediate boss, similar to what Lauren said, is not really going to get as much answers. Our bosses don't have much control, but as we look forward to contracts, that's something that we're really excited to build some momentum around climate and that kind of stuff.
As you look forward, what do you see is the biggest challenge, either from the changing climate or from an organizing perspective in terms of workplace and employer?
To me, as I see organizing, one of the biggest challenges is just keep, people just staying out when it's needed. Like when we're on a strike, sometimes it's just better to be out on a strike and not go back in and work, right? As soon as we lose a couple people that start going back to work, we really lose our power when some of our colleagues go back to work. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is just having that support, right? We gotta stay together at all time during this the period of just going out on a strike. To me, that's one of the really big thing that's it's tough, because people need to work, people need money, and because of that, sometimes people do go language understanding what's going on. That's one of my focus in the union and with the C2C is being there to translate for the workers so they can get their story out to the community and also for the community to ask questions directly to the workers. That's one of my big focus is to help create that bridge. So the community knows what's going on at our workplace. But yeah, to me, one of the big challenges is just staying out on the strike.
At the end of the day, one of our biggest obstacles right now to create like climate resilient green schools is just money. I mean, this country is going to have to properly fund its public schools. I work in a school district that is underfunded at the state level compared to like suburban school districts and other school districts in the state of Illinois. And so we need to fix that problem, and we're just going to need massive investment. I mean, the Chicago Public Schools just went through its facilities master plan public engagement process. So there were community meetings across the city where parents and staff and students were invited to come speak on the needs of their school. But they're basically saying like that process is going to involve $14 billion. And to truly do all the things we want to see, to get all of the green renovations and things accomplished, it would take like more than twice that, closer to $30 billion. So we are going to have to figure out how to put the pressure on folks in power to really achieve that investment in our schools. And it's gonna involve rich people paying their fair share of taxes. So we're definitely thinking about how do we organize at the local level in our individual schools and workplaces? How do we organize at the school district level? And what would it look like for us to put pressure on elected officials and really advocate at the state level in this union contract? We're building the ship as we sail, but I'm optimistic that these are extremely popular demands in the communities where we work. And if we don't fight for these things, we're definitely not going to get them. I can't imagine continuing to teach in a school building that doesn't have proper ventilation and where students don't have enough high quality food to eat and safe water to drink in their schools. So I certainly don't plan on being stuck in this situation for another 10 years.
Yeah, as much as I hate to admit it, because our union is a very energetic union, but I would say that our biggest challenge is apathy. Especially when you're waiting for a contract. So many of our 420 some stores have been waiting for a contract for several years. And a lot of stores where people work, they weren't even a part of the organizing campaign. They came in after. So a lot of their mindset is that the union really hasn't won that much for them in their eyes. And keeping involvement up is really hard. But as we go into having a contract, I think things like having, a climate committee and some of our other committees, and really focusing on like what we can achieve and what we're going to achieve, and what we've achieved so far. I mean, even without a contract, we have pressured the company to do things like our starting rate was something like $10. Just a few years ago, and they announced in 2019 that their goal was to get us to $15 an hour by 2025. But once the union popped up in 2021, that quickly changed to 2022. They raised us to $15 an hour. So things like that, and just really focusing on what we have done and what we can do, and focusing on things like climate, things like I know a lot of people are really excited to eventually organize around the entire line of production, or helping more than just Starbucks organize with the power that we've built. And just focusing on what's possible is going to be what gets us through this apathy that sprinkles in and makes it hard to keep people focused.
Thank you all so much. I'm really in awe of how brave and inspiring you all are, and I really appreciate you sharing your time and your stories with us today. I'm gonna pass it to Daphne to close us out before my internet goes out again.
Yeah, hi everyone. Really appreciate all the panelists for talking to us about all the organizing that you've been doing, and I thought all of the stories were really inspirational and gave kind of a sense of just like how broad climate issues really can be, because I guess before you really start to think about how to bring climate into your workplace organizing, it can be a little bit abstract. You can think like, well, climate is this thing that's like big and separate. Everything you told us here today had to do with your bread and butter, had to do with your students' lives, your own lives, your community lives, and your coworkers. And it just felt very concrete. And I really appreciated how much you talked to us about that in this really inspirational way. So I really appreciate you, applaud you, and I'm sorry that Joseph isn't here to take a final question from the audience and to take a final bow, but I really appreciate Joseph as well for coming despite very challenging weather conditions, and everyone for hanging in there with the crazy internet issues. I'm in New York. We recently had an earthquake. That was weird. So there's a lot going on. This is very, as one person in the chat said, on brand. I will just say that, again, we have our upcoming training. If you want to learn how to do what all of these wonderful panelists have been doing in their workplaces, then show up for our next training. You can also get support from us if you have already issues at your workplace, and you would like to talk to someone directly about the stuff that's going on at your workplace. You can get support at workerorganizing.org/support. And we would love to see you again at our future events. We'd love to see you again in general. And I think that's all from us. We're ending a few minutes early because we lost one of our panelists and our host. But thanks again for all of your patience, and we will see you in the future.